different things this segment, you know. What are we going to try and tie together at the end? This is what I'm asking myself, what you're asking yourselves, you know, when you're working with someone, when you're doing what you were doing yesterday. Because one of the things is, it's beautiful, you've got all the beginnings. How do you tie it together? How do you bring it together to make it meaningful or relevant for people? Yeah. So, no. No. Because again, it's bigger than that. It's no. I mean, it's bigger than what are these movements allowing you to experience? Why has Feldenkrais got so many ATMs in so many different orientations? And he constantly says, you know, I'm after flexible minds, not flexible bodies. No? But he's using the body. He's using us. And again, this is Marg and I, our little thing is we don't like the word the body, do we, Margaret? You. You. Yeah. So, but we're using this medium of our sensory motor experience to become aware, you know, to pay attention and to find through that medium, how do I find all of these different perspectives? Because that's the transfer of learning. No? Do I know this in many, many different ways? Because, you know, I would sort of say generally one of the big things is about learning, and I'm sure Zoran's spoken to you about this, it's so context dependent. No? So Guy Claxton always told this beautiful story. Who's an educationalist. But anyway, he told this beautiful story about this guy who learned to do something, but it was always when he was drinking. No? No. But just that's, he couldn't, you know, how could he transfer the learning to another situation? How are we giving people the opportunities to transfer something they're doing well to different situations, to keep giving them another perspective? So one of the things in Feldenkrais is someone can be really well organised, but do they have the adaptability to respond to changing circumstances? It's a little bit, I can always remember Ian Thorpe saying he was brilliant at swimming and he said, I can't catch a ball. No? So he understands something really, really well. He said, as I said, going in a straight line and moving fast. But you can see that wouldn't necessarily transfer to catching a ball, to what you have to understand to track something through space. It's a very, very different function of what you're looking for. And that, I think, that's the ending of the lesson. How do we make people feel competent? That they've, just as Margaret said yesterday, they've done well. Do you know what I mean? Give them a sense of competence and some new possibility has maybe emerged, some new idea that we could leave them with to transfer to other things. But as I said, it's this transfer of learning that I think for all of us is a really big one. Okay. So let's see how I go with it today, my approximation. So lying on your back. And over the last 3 weeks, if you reflect back, so not just on how you're lying at the moment, but reflect back over your other experiences, are there some new parts of you that seem to have found the ground? So that Maybe it's something about your pelvis has more. You feel more of your pelvis on the ground. So these parts of us that really do tend to take weight. Or something about the back of your head. Or your chest. And what, with where you are right now, what would you do to decrease that pressure a little bit on the ground? How would you make that pressure less? What is it that you do really well that decreases that pressure? And then how do you let that part go back to rest on the ground a little more? What's your habit? So that you begin to get an experience of what is it that I do in my everyday life that those parts of me start to leave the ground again. And then there's the other side as well, that I can lie down. You know, I'm going to do an ATM, and I lie down and I go, take a moment and go, are there some parts of me that if I spread my attention, if I find this place in myself of being present and calm, that some places now I can simply allow to go to the ground more. I'm getting more conscious awareness or conscious control, if you like, over myself. I'm becoming more aware of what I do that pulls me away from the ground, the parts of me. I'm more aware of how I can find ground a little bit more. So this again is this idea that it's through all these movements that we've been doing that's allowing you to get this awareness. That the movements have been the vehicle that you've been in all these strange orientations and situations that are building this awareness for you. How does the contact you make with the ground influence your breathing? And again, you might want to feel if you gently lift a part of yourself a little bit, not a big bit, but something. Is it in your back muscles? Is it in your belly? Is it in your throat? Or somewhere in your gut? So don't ever forget that our gut's got lots of muscle. All smooth muscle, controlled by our autonomic nervous system. But our gut and our lungs, all of that. So what's this relationship between my contact with the floor and the availability of my breath? What happens to the contact I make with the floor if I stop part of me breathing somewhere? So we're developing this richer internal environment, this world sort of inside us. And you could begin to roll your head. How does that get influenced by your contact with the ground and your breathing? How do we keep building these relationships? And there's many more that will just stay there. So if you were going to begin to roll to your side to come up to sitting, where would you initiate that from? And what parts of you might you lose in your attention? How much of you is ready to go? Do you lead it from your head and then your shoulders, so you sort of do a bit of a sequence? How many different places could you begin to initiate that action from? Your pelvis, would it be ready? Or would you have to reorganize your legs to find that your pelvis would be ready? So again, I said this to some people the other day, and I've got nothing to back it up except lots of experience, no neurological evidence. But it's like once you know how to initiate movement from somewhere, and it's not just getting pulled along for the ride, it's much more in your self-image. It's much more concrete in your self-image. Could you lead this movement from your big toe? So how do we work out how much of ourselves is in our image? Could you lead it from the opposite hand to where you're rolling? And how does everything come along if you lead it from there? Because we've been doing lots of lessons on leading from the periphery. Could you lead it from your sternum? How clearly does your sternum know where you're intending to go and what you intend doing? So which of the parts of you know how to move across the ground to come to sitting? So for this lesson, could you find a way to do it where you're going to roll to your side to come up to sitting? What are you paying attention to? How often do we do this in ATMs? We really slow it down, and Feldenkrais will say, take half an hour to get up. So what is that process of learning that we use that, where we're doing one activity and we're really going really slowly so that we can look for reversibility, we can look for what's in my image. And not just what's in my image, but how do these different parts of myself relate to each other? And really find the part of you that most of you seems most connected to. Whether that's your head or your pelvis, your legs, whatever. And just find what in my self-image at the moment could most easily lead the rest of me into activity. And come up to sitting. Because in a way, you know, this is, Feldenkrais really deeply understood baby development. What does a baby need to understand to be able to do the movements it does? How does it get to sitting? What are all the relationships it's had to work out that enable it to come to sitting? So now you're in sitting. So go back to now that sort of playful curiosity that you might expect. Or you could maybe imagine, I don't know, I can't imagine being a baby. Those memories are not there for me. So maybe you could see a child and think, what is that curiosity? What's that attitude, that playfulness or not having to get it right brings to my attitude to learning? What happens in my organisation when I engage that attitude? What happened to my head, my movability across the ground? And just feel what's going to happen if you start with the attitude of, this is going to be difficult. Whatever we're going to do now is going to be difficult and I don't feel up to the task. So come back to that playfulness and really feel how much it's to do with this moving across the ground, this sort of open, inclusive attention. And find a really easy way. The soles of your feet they don't have to be touching, but they're facing each other in front of you. So again, this is not a lesson, is it, about crossing the midline that we've been doing. We've got the feet apart. It opens up different possibilities for us. And find a really easy way to take the right hand to the right foot or the left hand to the left foot. And once you've found a really easy way, could you find another 3 ways to do it? Once you've found an easy way, when you go, yeah, I've got my hand to my foot, find another 3 ways. But still not going to the outside of your knee. Huh? Within this trajectory, what possibilities could you think of? So that you're getting to a point where you can hold around the upper, you're going around the top of the foot and holding the outside. And you're finding curious, playful, and you're really finding, how can I get there over the top? Have I held my breath at all? Okay. And then do the same thing with the left hand to the left foot. So you're not going both hands to both feet at the moment. What happens when you're doing one side? What possibilities open up for you to explore when it's one hand to one foot? Because this is going to tell you something about where you like to shift your weight. If you like to stay more symmetrical, you'll always like to go both together. because they're the shapes you understand. And you're always going from the inside to hold inside your knee to hold the outside of your foot. Okay, pause a minute, just let your feet go and just have them there in that configuration, but just find the knees are wide, the soles are sort of facing each other. And just explore a little bit where you want your feet in relationship to your pelvis. Do you want them a little closer? Do you want them a little further away? What allows you to bring your weight forward a little bit more? Is it having your feet in really close for you? Is it having your soles really close together, or is it easier when you let the feet be wider apart? Because this organisation of your legs is going to have a really big impact on what your pelvis can do over your hip joints. Okay. So find where it's comfortable for you to move a little bit forward. Wherever you want your legs to be, where you know there's a possibility of moving forward. And start to think of the base of your neck, this area around your 7th cervical, your 1st thoracic, that comes around via the 1st rib to join into your sternum. And the other thing that's joining there are your collarbones. So just trace that area a little bit for yourself. Where's the base of my neck? Where do I think C7 or T1 is? You can't touch your 1st rib, but where would it be? At the back you can't anyway. You can touch it a little bit in this gap between your collarbone and your chest. And how does that come around to my sternum? And how do my collarbones fit into that area? So this was a place that we were really exploring a lot yesterday. So this is a very constrained area. So biomechanically, it's incredibly stable. It does tiny little movements. Yeah? Those tiny little movements open a world of possibilities up for us. So feel now, think of this area and think you're going to reach your right hand towards your right foot. Where does that area go? Obviously, it's going to translate. But does it translate straight forward? Does it translate a little to the left or the right? Where does it go in space? So we know it's got to move forward. So where does it go in terms of left and right and up and down? And then you've got all the axes of movement in there. So does it side bend a little bit as you go forward? Does it rotate as you go forward? Does it flex a little bit as you go forward, or does it extend a little bit? So this is yesterday when we were talking about self-use. So how do you find when I'm asking you to find different ways in this position to take your right hand to your right foot without changing really the configuration of your legs? What can you find in the middle of you? How many different ways? Does it make a difference if this area heads off in a little bit of a different direction than it might normally do? And how does that influence where your weight goes on your pelvis? Can you still keep your throat and your jaw and your tongue soft as you're exploring some of these different trajectories? So does your head always look down, or could your head look up or to the left or the right? Because this is an area for so many of us that doesn't have a lot of options, we need to sort of use the head, the peripheral part, as a lever in, as a way to start allowing this to find some different directions, just as we would if we were going to use the movement of the leg to allow new possibilities through the pelvis. So we're thinking of your head more as a limb and as a way to find some different ways. Where are your collarbones going? Because it's going to be dependent on what your head does, isn't it? Yeah? Maybe one's going up or down, or maybe one's going forward or back. Maybe they're both going forward. There's so many options. So this is a way for you to become more aware of your habits. And once you've explored that on one foot and then the other, if you are now going to take both hands to both feet, just feel, is it easier for you because of the way you shift your weight and what you understand here to go to one foot and then sort of to find the way to get to the other foot? So does weight shift really help you so that this base of your neck might move a little bit to one side? Or can you find a really easy way that both hands can go straight away without holding your breath, without tightening your chest? So again, we're cultivating all the things you did yesterday, keeping your hands soft, your intention soft. Because if your arms and legs can stay soft and mobile, we know that your torso's got more possibilities of finding different ways of moving. Okay. So again, next time you've got both hands, your thumb is with your fingers, and they're both over the top of your feet, holding around. If you can't get to your feet, hold your ankle. But please do it in a way that you know you're not holding your breath, your chest is soft, your head soft. And hopefully some of these things we'll explore now will make even where you are now a little easier. So from this position, could you gently begin to feel that you could side bend your right ear to your right shoulder, and then your left ear to your left shoulder? So a lot of these movements that we've been doing where you're not rotating, huh? You're just holding, no, from the over the top, but not just your toes, your foot, yeah. And your thumbs are with your fingers. Huh? And just side bending your head a little bit and see, where does that shift my weight when I do this? And then turn your head a little. Where does that take you if you turn your head? What does that do in your upper back and your shoulders? flex and extend your head a little bit, thinking of this softness in your upper back, that you can feel it's flexing and extending, and you can use your head as the lever to help you into that area. So we've got all of those sort of axes available. We've still got, and if you come back now in this position, could you move this area a little bit forward and back? So now you're thinking of more going through space, that your head can go forward in space, it can go backwards in space. Okay. So now if you were going to explore finding a way to allow your right foot and leg to leave the floor, what would you do? So your right hand's holding your right foot, your left hand's holding your left foot. What are you going to do to find a way to let your, and you're really finding this playful curiosity, where do you want to go? What's your habit? Do you roll back? Do you roll to the side? Do you shift to the side? What is it that you can be curious about in all of these different places, so that your shoulders stay soft, so there's no pulling with your arms? What can your shoulder blades do, and how is that associated with where you can take the base of your neck to change these shapes in your torso? We're going to get a little bit more specific here. Could you find a way to lift your right leg really lightly by leaning to your left, so that you're going to take more weight onto your left buttock? Go gently. And again, there's not just one trajectory. Yes, you're going to the left, but how many places can you go to the left? Left's a direction. So where's your head going? Do you get smaller on the side that you're rolling to? Do you get longer? So you're really exploring. That's what playfulness is about. It's about, where can I have options? What's this space I can allow myself to be in where I've got options? I haven't decided on the, I know where I'm going, I'm oriented to where I'm going, but I've still got all the possibilities open to me. How many shapes can I make in my torso to find a way that my right leg could lift and begin to lengthen? And it can lengthen because it's light. No? Don't push it straight. No? Keep it light. Keep it free. So that your thinking of what could happen doesn't get serious. It doesn't get into, this is what I should be doing. And if you've found an easy way to do that, can you find that you can gradually find a way that more of your left leg can take weight on the floor? So that as you find, and if you count it, if you're holding on, your left leg won't want to go to the floor. What will it want to do? It's going to try and balance you. Yeah? Where does your head go? Does it make a difference if you look to different places in the room to do this? No? If you orient yourself in a different direction? No? If you look up or you look to the right or the left or down or... How many things can you explore here? And again, if you watch Amherst, which I really encourage you to do, at this stage he's berating people because this is like a yoga move, so they're stretching their leg out to its full extent, and he's sort of yelling at them a bit. Do you know what you're doing? And you can see them, some of them sitting there, and they're really long and they've got their leg out to the left, but they're not going anywhere. They've got to the position they wanted. You know? And what we're after is, even when I get there, I've still got possibilities open to me. You know? It's not a stuck position. So this reversibility, try it the other side. So how would you go getting your left leg light? To the right now, yeah? But it's your... Yeah. So you're still over the top. There's an absolute reason he's got your hand over the top, thumb with the fingers. Mm. So is it different this side? So this is really interesting, you know, when we practice ATM. Do we always rely on putting a lesson on and listening that someone's guiding us through a process? Or how do we also just get on the floor or in sitting and just find a simple movement? Usually it's going to be about weight shift. It's going to be about something that's a little bit more of a challenge, and you can still find options. So this is what Margaret was talking about yesterday. You know, how do we test our ability a little bit? How do we find this place where we can explore something? And then maybe you could do one side and the other side. So now you've got compare and contrast. Huh? So if one side is easier, what do you do? Is it that you've involved more of yourself in the movement, which is always something that we're interested in? Or is it something to do with the configuration you're making in the middle? Is it something to do? There is maybe a particular configuration that might make this movement easier. Rest on your back. So what is it these movements do where we're constraining the periphery in a way, so we have to find our middles? How's that influenced your contact with the ground? Maybe how your head rolls now? And your breathing. What are these three things we could pay attention to? Because, you know, what we're sort of looking for is with lessons like this is that something in the middle can mobilise a little bit more easily. Something can get included in that image. So now, if you were going to slide your legs, bring them up to standing, what can your middle do? Is there something a little bit more alive in there that, so that you're not just thinking of your leg doing the movement, but that it's attached to something deeper in you? Okay, so once you've got your legs to standing, so don't do this, listen to the instruction first. If we're looking for that same position of your hands holding your feet, just pause and think, how would I do this? What's my habit? Would I immediately take both hands to both feet? Would I think of bringing my feet to my hands, or maybe both? Would I do one side then the other? So just feel your habit. And let's do one side again. So if you're going to again take your right hand to your right foot, how do you organise that? Your torso's more constrained now because you're on the floor. Where does your weight roll? Get your right hand to your right foot. How do you really find this place in your chest, in your head, in your shoulders? You lift your head straight up. Where does this upper torso go? So do you drop your head back and you bring that forward, which is more a little the pecking movement, or maybe your head slides on the floor a little bit first, and then you find a way to more easily get your hand to your foot. So you're still going from the inside of your knee towards your foot. And you're really finding an effortless way. Maybe your head wants to go more back toward the left. Have you got an idea where your head would go? Where could it go? We've been doing a lot on this shift of weight. And again, don't feel now that there has to be a straight shift, but maybe you look up a little bit as you shift your weight, or you look down, or how many places could your head orient to? And then do a few times your left hand to your left foot. And where does your weight shift? Do you roll it straight down along your middle? Do you shift more sideways? And where would all these different configurations of your torso take your head? And then if you were going to hold both, really feel your way here. Is it easier to hold one and get it really easily in my hand? And then just to feel, what do I need to do to get the other one? And is there something free in my upper chest, in my head, that lets me shift the weight again so that I can sort of come to holding both of my feet with my knees wide, and I've got this really soft, supportive back on the ground. So your knees are bent. And I don't mean bent, but you've got them at a place for you where you don't feel stuck, where your legs feel light, your arms feel light, or as light as you can get them. And a lot of this is going to be, for some of you, how much you can soften this middle back into the ground. Okay, so now you're going to gently begin to lengthen one leg a little bit toward the ceiling and feel, how do you do that? How much of you responds to that? Is all of you still in the picture? Where would your head go? Does your weight roll toward the leg that's going to lighten and lengthen? Or does your weight roll in the opposite direction to allow your leg to lighten and lengthen? And what's that got to do with where your head could go through space? What's available in your shoulders? And you're really looking for this lightness. Really looking for, I'm not making my leg lighten, but there's something in how I do this right at the beginning that leg just gets light and it wants to lengthen a little bit. Right back at the beginning, where do you need to redistribute your weight, to shift your weight? Where does your head need to go? That somehow you just feel your legs ready to lighten. You don't have to make it lengthen. It's coming out of your system. And feel free to do this with your head up in the air if that's easy. Have a rest again. What's happened to your contact with the ground? What are these relationships? Your breathing, where your attention is spread at the moment, or how it's spread. Okay. So again, finding an easy way to hold both feet. And again, do you do them both together? Is that the easiest way for you to get there? Or maybe it's easiest for you to find one, shift your weight, find the other. Lift your head this time. How could you lift your head? Do you lift it straight up? Is that heavy? What about if you rolled your head or tilted your head a little left or right? Is there a lighter place? Is there something, if you change the trajectory of your head on the floor, that for you, your head gets light? So remember, this is what we've been doing with Larry a lot. If my head's not light, I have to feel where my weight is. I have to shift to where my weight is so that my head can get lighter to lift. It's just not important that it comes straight up. What's important is that you understand deeply within yourself what allows my head to get light. Is it rotation? Is it side bending? And it's to do with all of these movements are helping you to shift your weight onto your torso where it's ready to take weight. Okay, so leave your head up now. If you can find a light way to leave your head. If you can't, leave it on the floor. Arms and your legs are still soft. And begin to side bend your right ear to your right shoulder with your head lifted. And where does your weight go? Does your weight go a little bit to the right when you do that? Let it go to the right and feel where your head goes if you go to the right. And then could your weight shift to your left as you take your right ear to your right shoulder? What would be different? Gently, these are the smallest of movements. Again, you're thinking of this base of your neck, where it's going. So as you tilt your head a little bit to the right, does your sternum go to the left or does your sternum go to the right? And then leave your head on the ground, holding your hands, holding your feet, and do a little bit that same movement there. So most of you will have your chin up in the air a little bit to do this. You'll be a little bit extended in your neck. And you're taking your right ear to your right shoulder and you're noticing which way that shifts your weight. And feel which leg gets light. If you take your right ear to your right shoulder or your right ear to your right shoulder and your weight shifts left. When does your right leg get lighter? When does your right leg get lighter? With this shift of weight in your upper torso. Have a rest again. So this is one of the movements where he's really, you've got to find the quality for something new to emerge. Again, if your arms are really gripping your hands. Some of those possibilities aren't available. So come up to sitting again. Right hand holding right foot, left hand holding left foot. And again, notice, is there a difference if you go straight forward or if you go one to the other? Just that you've got some options there, or you could do the right hand first or the left hand first. What are your options? So now if you began to find a way to lighten your right leg, where might your head go? Is it going to come back toward your right shoulder? Or is your ear going to go to your left shoulder? Which is going to let your right leg get lighter? And can you feel that this, where you take your head, is going to influence which side gets longer in your torso and which side gets shorter? So now as you're going, you're finding a way to lighten your right leg. So you're rolling to the left. How much now could you come onto your left leg? Where would your head go? Obviously, it's going to have to move to the left. It's going to get translated to the left. But what's it doing? Where's it orienting? So that you could find a way to bring your, sorry, you're going to the left, your left elbow in front of your left knee. Where do you have to take that upper back now? Where do you have to shift your weight? It's going to give you the space to get your left elbow in front of your left knee on the floor. And see how that's going to mean you have to move even more forward. So you're going forward, you're going over to the left. What's going to lighten your right leg the most? Tilting your head to the left or tilting your head to the right? So not the rotation so much, but the side bend. Because it's side bend that's letting us know about left and right. So that your leg can begin to lengthen up toward the ceiling. It's all to do with the shape you're making in the middle. And it's really easy to get caught in, I'm stiff. Do you know what I mean? I don't have enough mobility. This is about strength. It's about organisation. How about you go to the left? And it's such an unusual organisation for so many of us. So he's really building in after he's done all of these lessons and all these ways you can shift your weight and where your head can go. And this is where it gets really interesting because, you know, as the facilitator, as the teacher, it's really good to leave you in exploration. It's really good to leave you in thing. And, you know, when do I make the decision, which Feldenkrais does here, to show what would be the easiest way? The people have been in the exploration. You can see they're really engaged. But there's some orientation that he's asking for that maybe isn't emerging. So let's look at Karen. Seeing you're the one up, Karen, still doing it. So Karen's coming across to her right. Yeah? And you can see she can't lift her left heel off the floor. Can you feel that, Karen? Because it's still got weight on it. So what's this shape she's making here? Between here and here. What would allow more of this to get to the ground, do you think? Getting longer or shorter? You can do it either way. So what would happen? She's now come back. What would happen, Karen, if right from the beginning, I'm just going to give her a clue here. Hold your feet. Now, this is all soft, everything's soft. That as you began to shift to the right, your head could bend back to the left. This is so new for Karen. There, Karen. Huh? There. So we'll just start that off with her. Huh? Can you feel how much softer your arms are, Karen? Yeah. Now do what you were doing, which was what's happened to your arms? So she's lost this. Huh? But if we go that way, look how soft her shoulders still are. Now, try it. So you're getting longer on your right as you go to the right, but your head is going, and it's not moving back. Do you know what I mean? It's not that it's pulling, but it's orienting. Yeah? So what does that do to this ability to get longer on the right, to get your elbow on the floor? Can you feel the difference, Anna? Yeah? And this is the difference. You know, I was giving Angela a lesson yesterday. This is the opposite of what we were doing. And so Angela was learning what happens if I let everything go the way. Yeah. So you can do that. Yeah. But that's a little bit more about I'm falling, I'm going down. This way is going to let you do something else. Yeah. So could this way of getting over there possibly lead you into rolling? One leg, so your head goes down towards your neck. Yay. Yeah. This is when I was talking yesterday about how do we understand all of these different shapes we can make and all the possibilities we can have through this upper back. that let our arms stay soft, that let us counterbalance or move in one direction. Watch out for each other. Huh? That's beautiful, Glory, really staying reversible. Huh? So you could make a big circle doing this if you wanted to. Huh? And how much is this freedom in your upper back, in your shoulders, to move? Because he's asking, you've got to move forward. You have to take this forward to get that elbow, to find the shapes that let you keep moving. So can you feel that this movement is going to keep your head in the air if you keep going? Yeah? So if you keep going, if you take your head to the floor, can you feel you're a bit stuck now? Yeah? So this movement that he's after is your head's actually staying lifted a little bit off the floor. Yeah? So you've got to find that lightness first. And it's great to see you staying within your learning. Okay, let's do another way, just to make it easier for some of you. No, just for some of you to hold your feet. It's still a bit of a stretch. So what about if you lie on your back and your legs are long up in the air above you? And you just hold somewhere around your knees. So your legs will be wide. So we've already done a lot on getting your legs wide and long and soft. So you're holding more behind your knees now, keeping those knees wide. How could you do this same roll? So you're going to roll to the right. Where's your head going to go? Your legs are long. Feel all those different parts of you in your torso that need to roll on the floor. So you're going to get to a point, keep going, Sha, where this leg can reach and bring you back. So you still got to have these reaching legs. Yeah? It's not that they're just passive there. When's one leg going to reach to bring you up or down? How do you stay oriented? Now you're, yeah. Ooh, watch out for each other. Be oriented to the other people in the room as well. That's why this is so good. You've got to be oriented to yourself, what's happening internally, to the world around you. So one leg reaches. So if your legs are too tight, if they're too, yeah, and you're finding your level of aesthetic appreciation. You know, it might not be perfect, but boy, it's good to be able to do it sometimes, that sense of achievement, even if it's not perfect. Then you can go back and refine it. You can hold around your ankles if you want. Yeah. And maybe then one knee bends and straightens as you do this circle. But feel this rolling around your middle that you're getting. That your head's going to be lifted off the ground. And you've got to find, which is where, this is how babies get up. All these parts of themselves through their middle that need to touch the floor. But you've got the attributes, Anna. the playfulness and the... Huh? But you know, how many different things do we have to do to find all of these different ways? Huh? He does one more that you can try if you want, where two hands are on one leg or on one foot. So he's got one more flexed now, but can still lengthen, and the other one's free to do whatever it likes. Where does that take you? If you're holding one leg, does one side become easier? To some of you, that gets the pattern a little bit easier of being able to go to the ground, but keep my head up. So there's so much in this lesson. Going to the ground and my head goes down, going to the ground and my head stays up. Have a rest on your back. The levels of organisation that he's thinking of in these ATMs. So with our clients, what is it that we want them to understand? This ability to enter into a learning process, to explore, to look for options. And then sometimes we have to guide this relationship that we're looking for. Really start, where are your shoulders going? And how does that influence where your chest goes and what happens in your pelvis? So if you were going to roll to the side at the moment, are there more parts of you ready to go after a lesson like this? Or roll to your tummy? Yeah? Just feel. After doing a lesson like this where you've really been moving your head through space, is there more of you in your image? And would you roll to your side by getting longer or getting shorter? Would you put side bending in there? Because again, this is what we're looking for. How many different ways do I have to do something? And how do they all allow me to find different parts of myself, and how that moves my head in space in different ways? Okay, come up to standing. What's this lesson done for you? You know, we talk a lot about creating a safe environment for learning. What is it about finding the ground like this in different ways that maybe allows people to feel less anxious? Or a little bit more competent because they've found ways of feeling safe within this profound influence on our lives of gravity. How many different ways? If you were going to look up or look down or underneath your legs, how much of you is ready to follow you at the moment? Does it feel easier to orient because you've given up some of the work in your eyes by moving your head in all these different planes so that your vestibular system is going to make you feel safer? That's the interesting thing, you know. The more finesse we put in, the more distinctions we make, so we feel safer. Biggest thing when people get giddy or vertigo, you know, and initially they'll often give them medication if they're really terrible, but you don't want to stay on it because it dampens down the response. And what we're trying to do is get finer and finer responses in there. And what's that got to do with this? All these orientations and shapes. And you can see after moving across the ground like that, this is a different place to be. Where's your attention? How would you move through the world from this place? When might this be a really good attitude to have when you're doing FI? Where you've got lots of possibilities in the one place, in the one configuration. Which sports might this be good for? Which activities? One of the things I really love doing when I work with young kids is looking at their organisation, probably because, this goes back to my childhood. I wasn't the greatest sports person. I was usually one of the last picked on the team. So it's so wonderful to work out what's something they'd be good at from their organisation. Do you know what I mean? What's something that they'd actually be successful at? And I've realised, after all these years, rowing would have been perfect for me. Don't have to move much through space. All I've got to do, I've got long legs, I've got long arms. Give me something really simple. Don't give me things where I'm being asked to move through space. But it's a really wonderful gift to give kids. Okay. So let's take a break.